I put it on charge, and then when I put it on charge, yeah,
Mm.
I just conked out because
Is it?
obviously the training's from 8 to 4, and it's quite like it's always a long day. So by the
Yeah.
time I was like, yeah, let me charge up my phone, I woke up. My one of my colleagues, one of my friends called me. It was 8:30. I was like, I'm just gonna grab a munch and have a Guinness, and then that's it. But
Man.
it is what it is, yeah.
But you're there for 7 days, though, innit?
Yeah, so they book you in till Friday, then
Mm.
back for the weekend, then I'm coming up on Monday to Wednesday.
See, so I'm saying that you can do the spa like whenever, innit?
Yeah, man. I'll have opportunities to do it. It's no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. Say nothing, say nothing. All right, boom. So yeah, man. I felt like I wanted to get another episode in still,
Mm,
a few downloads over the last few days.
mm,
And yeah, man. I like even so what I named this today is the spiritual understanding of the end of the world.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, and I think it's kind of on time. You understand what I'm saying? Given
yeah,
the current status of things that's taking place on this physical plane, but seeing if we can kind of peel back the layers to kind of get a deeper meaning uh,
yeah.
in regards to what's all taking place. And so, with that being said, though, what I would ask first and foremost is what's your idea or concept of the end of the world? Maybe we can go from there.
For me, yeah,
Mm.
my concept of the end of the world is it's not really an end because there's never an end. It's actually a new beginning. So you see, like when it comes to dying, yeah, even the concept of dying, you're not in terms of like a physical death or even a spiritual death. You're not supposed to fear death because it's like a transmutation or as you say, a caterpillar going through a cocoon phase,
Right.
and you reinvent yourself many times, you know. So I see it as a new beginning.
Right.
It's an ending phase, but it's not the end. Like even on a physical level, yeah. Let's say for instance, there was a nuclear fallout or asteroid hit the Earth, or there was another ice age. It's like if human beings got destroyed off of the face of the Earth would flourish and be just as good new without us. So, probably better off, in fact. So that's I don't see it as an end. I see it as a new beginning.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
yeah, 100%. And you're
mm,
somebody that's of a particular kind of mindset anyway. You know,
yeah,
so to to be able to have an alternative view. I say alternative because the the common kind of depiction of the end of the world is the end
mm,
of everything,
mm,
ultimate destruction, the end of, right?
yeah,
But it's interesting that in all of the major religions
mm,
speak about this concept of the end of the world or God's gonna come at the end of the world, right? And
mm,
with all of these traditions, the signs and times and symbolism of the end of the world is quite drastic. It's a lot of chaos. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Turmoil, destruction. But this is associated with the coming of the Lord, if we will. You
yeah,
understand? The coming of God or Allah, whatever it may be, right?
mm,
And so I found that kind of interesting. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, why does the world have to end for the presence of God to be seen or felt? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or why does God's coming or presence signify the end of the world? Do you
yeah,
understand? Or the destruction?
yeah,
And with that, there's deeper layers of understanding or occult understandings, if you will, which is just to say
mm,
hidden understandings in regards to what we're speaking about at the end of
mm,
the world. So what I like to do is I like to give certain definitions of certain words, right? Etymology, if you're somebody who's like a student of knowledge and wisdom and you like studying and so forth,
mm,
etymology is going to be one of your best tools, right? Because within the etymology, you can kind of peel back the historical layers that a word has. So many of the words that we use now and they're in their colloquial 21st definitions
mm,
never necessarily started off that way. Do you understand?
mm,
Of the root words have a complete different meaning. So when these ideas came about and the conversations around these ideas and words were being had, there was a different perspective on them, right? And so, for example, the word apocalypse.
mm,
Apocalypse is often something that's associated with the end of the world, right? And the word itself, so if you were to just like Google the word apocalypse, it would say the total destruction and end of the world. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when you go into the etymology
mm.
word apocalypse, it means to reveal or
Yeah.
it's a revelation.
So no more illusions.
Right. Yeah. No more illusions, which ultimately we're going to get to because we're carrying on the conversation from
Mm,
the last episode, right?
mm.
We're speaking about how we perceive the world, right? But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Apocalypse, right, means to uncover or reveal, which is also connected to the revelations in the Bible,
Mm,
right? Which is speaking about the end of the world. But this book is called Revelation because it is a revelation. This revealing or revelation, as you just kind of touched on, is speaking about self-realization. That's the uncovering. That's the revealing of your true self or true knowing of self, which is gnosis, right? Knowledge or knowing. Do you
mm,
understand what I'm saying? And so there's some school of thoughts that speak to the book of Revelations in the Bible as John the Baptist's self-realization in coming into Christhood. And the
mm,
only way you could kind of explain that process is using symbolic language because
mm,
there's only so much you can kind of say or you can there's only so far you can go trying to define the undefinable. Do you understand what I'm saying?
mm,
So like anytime we try to define God, for example, we use terminologies that we know and we're used to on this plane of existence. So we will use physical representations. Oh, God is like this and God is like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or our understanding, which is based in a reality that's very base and basic, that the ancients used to call an illusion. So just within that, define things, or especially using language or words, will fall short. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the closest language you can get to kind of describing these whole truths is symbolic language,
mm,
symbolism. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so that's why when you read the book of Revelations and many of these ancient texts, they're written in a way that if you just read it from a linear perspective, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? The understanding will be kind of skewed. But when you read it from a symbolic perspective, which is really the language of the spirit, then you get a wider perspective. We say in today's term as a picture paints 1,000 words. Do you
mm,
understand what I'm saying? So each picture is having a conversation or book even. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's being relayed to you as an individual. Because the way you will see that picture and the way I will see that picture is from two different complete perspectives, but we're still getting those 1,000 words. Do you
mm,
understand what I'm saying? And so it's interesting that this word apocalypse means to uncover or reveal. Do you understand what I'm saying?
mm,
If you go through all of the main, let's just say the monotheistic religions, they all have this symbolism or this story of the end of the world or the destruction. Even in Islam, they speak about the emergence of the Antichrist and how there's going to be senseless immortality. I
mm,
mean, sorry, senseless immorality. You understand what
mm,
I'm saying? This crazy unnatural phenomena, darkness and evil just gonna reign across the playing field, if you will. Do you understand
Mm,
what I'm saying? Same within the Christianity in the book of the Bible, also speaks about wars being committed. In fact, you know what? So 1 second. Read this right here. Oh, Matthew, this is the book of Matthew's 24,
mm,
verse 8, yeah? And he said, You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. This is
mm,
speaking about the symbols of the end of the world, yeah?
mm,
Shall hear wars and rumors of wars. What are we seeing right now? Nothing but wars. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is not necessarily to say and jump on the bandwagon to say, oh, we're in the end times now. No,
mm,
the end times has always been. The end times or the revelation is really a self-realization process that you individually go through.
mm,
That judgment day is an individual process where you will be judged, not necessarily by an external force, right? But more so from a Kemetic understanding, whereby that judgment was the weighing of the heart, which we'll get into a little bit later to uncover the real spiritual meaning because it goes beyond the morale that we've placed on it from religion. So to say, I've been a good person, therefore my heart weighs just like a feather. No, 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 no. It's more than that, right? It's more than that. But anyway, going back to what I was saying,
yeah.
with these concepts of the end of the world within these main monotheistic religions, they're speaking about destruction, right? Which is not necessarily um, just related to these monotheistic religions. This stems back thousands of years before these religions were even in play. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have something called the yugas in Hinduism, right? And these yugas or cycles go within Hinduism dictate certain, let's say, behaviors or ways of conduct on the planet, right? And so you have the first yuga, I can't remember the name, but it relates to the golden age. And then from the
Is that
gold,
the Kali Yuga? I'm just guessing. I've just heard that
so
name.
the Kali Yuga is the fourth stage and
Mm.
supposedly the worst stage. Do you
All
understand?
right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, utter complete destruction, chaos, and how we define chaos anyway on a physical level, because we'll get into the science of that
Mm,
later down the line as well. But essentially, what I'm saying is, within you kind of get more of a picture or understanding of these cycles, because, like you said in the beginning, there isn't really no beginning or ending with energy. Just
mm,
saying death is just a transmutation or a transformation. In the monotheistic religions, the end of the world comes off as a singular event. Whereas when you go into more ancient teachings,
mm,
it's about a particular cycle that always comes and goes. Right. And so after the Kali Yuga, which is the worst cycle in Hinduism, the golden age comes back into play.
mm,
The golden age. And this golden age is symbolic of man being one with spirit, that oneness that we spoke about in the first episode, right? And so the further you go into, let's say, indigenous or ancient wisdom, the more you realize that this end of the world signifies a particular cycle, right? These yugas or cycles are speaking about the fall of man, which is symbolic of the fall of consciousness. Because if you
mm,
follow the different cycles via the Hindu school of thought, they will show you that through each cycle, consciousness of the divine became less and less and less. And man became more physical in his thought process, meaning he became more physical in his seeing, therefore his perception or perceiving. We spoke about in the last episode this reducing valve that
mm.
that limits us from seeing the unlimited. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? If you didn't hear that episode, go back and listen to that thoroughly. And so when we're speaking about, what was I just saying? Mine's just gone.
Reducing.
The reducing valve, right?
Mm,
So when they're speaking about consciousness being reduced more into its physical state, it's speaking about a time when we was more holistic in our perception, and we became more reliant upon, let's say, the left side or one side of the coin or polarity. So we
mm,
became more entrenched in our logical ways of perceiving more so than our intuitive understanding of perceiving. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even in religion, every religion that you go through and you study, you realize that at a particular time, man was just walking and talking with God, normal. Adam and Eve was just talking with man. Noah was just talking with man. Moses was just,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it was just like
yeah,
an everyday occurrence. It weren't nothing too deep. And that is just more symbolic of that connection that they're trying to symbolically tell. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so just like you have different seasons within the cycle, we're still talking about going to get back to the end of the world concept. I'm going to tie it all
mm,
in. But the same way you have the different cycles within nature that dictate where when things thrive and when things get depleted or become less or wither away, right?
mm,
We have that on a universal scale. In fact, these yugas that you find in Hinduism are just speaking about the cosmic seasons, right? And so on a cosmic level, you have your summer, you have your autumn, your spring, and your winter. And so this cycle is going through various seasons whereby consciousness is at its highest and then consciousness falls to its lowest. This might sound it sounds kind of crazy because then the question would have to be, well, what is the purpose of this then? If this thing just goes round and round and round and round and round and round, then that says that this age that we're classifying as the worst age, even when we go into the golden age at one particular season, now these are thousands and thousands and thousands. They say that the Kali Yuga lasts for 432,000 years, according to the Hindu doctrine. But
whoa,
understand that their concept of time also is they show you how time differs from the gods than it does the humans, right?
mm,
And understand that the word God is just more so symbolic of a higher level of consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
yeah,
so, but a level of perception that is attainable in all of these mythologies and schools of thought, right? But just to take it back now and kind of circle it all around. So you have these seasons whereby consciousness falls all the way down, right? And
mm,
afterwards, after these catastrophes and these destructions and all of these things take place. Remember, the word apocalypse, it means the destruction of the world. Do you understand what I'm saying? The end of the world. Now, if we just take it back a bit, in the last episode, again, we kind of touched on it, but the way we go about defining the world is through a very limited lens. So when we speak about the destruction of the world, it is symbolically speaking to that portion of us that sees this physical world as real. So the end of the world or destruction of the world is really speaking about the end of or the destruction of the illusion or Maya.
mm,
Do you understand what I'm saying? Because again, the way we define the world just as human beings is from our 5% limited self. So therefore, we are not even we're not even seeing what's real, right? And that destruction. Remember, I said there's this phrase that I heard in the video Samadhi,
mm,
Samadhi, S-A-M, I believe E-D-H-I. You can find it on YouTube. It's a three-part series. Dope, hella
mm,
dope. And so it says oneness to the soul is the abyss to the ego, right? Oneness to the soul is the abyss to the ego. Remember, your ego is just your consciousness. The way you perceive as an individual or see yourself as an individual is based on your logical, rationale aspect of mind that sees things in duality, that sees an other, that you separate from other. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so this destruction to the ego is a oneness to the soul. So the end of the world, remember they speak about God is coming at the end of the world. So again, why so much destruction when this is supposed to be a time when God is coming back to take his chosen ones and take them to heaven? Then why is the earth being destroyed? Do you understand what I'm saying? Again, it's symbolically speaking about your egoic based consciousness that constructs this physical world in the first place. Your mind is the matrix. The thing that you're trying to escape is this idea that this world is real, right? Not to say it doesn't exist. Remember the word illusion, the root word of the word illusion means to play. So this is a level of experience that is absolutely meant to be played. But we know down here, the masters of play are children. There's nobody on the planet that can outplay children.
Mm.
Try. You know what I mean? Spend 24 hours with a child and try to be as active as that child. Yeah, you know what I mean? All the parents know this, you know? And so a child is masterful at play, and that's because a child has an active imagination. They're still connected to that side of us that's shut down. See, these mythological stories are speaking about an internal process. We go through the end of the world multiple times. We just call it the dark night of the soul. Our levels of perceiving of what we believe is real is questioned on a day-to-day basis and is referred to as midlife crisis or I'm at the crossroads or you understand what I'm saying? Because you're now at a particular place where you're being forced to perceive something beyond what you define as real.
Mm.
And to the egoic based consciousness, it cannot perceive anything outside of itself. It cannot perceive the oneness because it naturally sees things in two. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so all of these stories, what comes to mind is the concept of jihad in Islam, right? Which is often interpreted as kind of like a war against the Western world, let's say, or the modernization, or those who are against Allah and all of these particular things. Whereas the Sufi understands the inner jihad, the inner war. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that
Mm.
inner war is you versus you. There's not you can't find me one school of thought on this planet that doesn't speak to that. It's you versus you. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so, just to kind of round off this kind of segment,
Mm.
this whole destruction of the world, because again, like you see a lot of these spiritual gurus and teachers online and absolutely kind of feed into the notion that this is a
Mm.
terrible time. Like this is a bad time. This ain't great. Da, 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 da. But throughout all those different schools of thought, this is actually a time that's signifying the coming of the golden age. Do you
Right,
understand?
right. Because I was gonna say as well, yeah, like you said, there's like a trend or historically, because I travel a lot. I ain't traveled in a little while, but I've traveled to a lot of places. I'm gonna be traveling a lot more soon as well. And every country that I go to that I can, I make it a point to visit all their museums.
Mhm.
Because what you find is when you go to different museums, you see different things. Like I remember going to Spain and seeing like dark-skinned Romans or like Africans and certain.
Yeah, yeah. Moors.
And yeah, exactly. And when I went to Iceland in 2018, because I didn't know much, from Vikings and stuff and
Mhm.
Norse mythology and that.
Right. Yeah,
When I
yeah.
was looking at their actually what they believed in and their stories,
Mhm.
like Valhalla represents their heaven, and when their apocalypse, the story is exactly the same as the revelation in the Bible, which I thought
Right.
was interesting considering that they're supposed to, worship many gods and say you can only die at war. And it was exactly the same. And the 7 years darkness. And it's like every culture, there's a flood story and there's an apocalyptic revelation and it's consistent across all cultures.
Right.
So
No,
that was interesting.
because there's one story.
Yeah.
It's absolutely one story. And so even when I jump from different schools of thoughts and it seems like it's fragmented. No, I'm just piecing the pieces together so you can see the whole story. It's one and the same. The mythology is the same, but the philosophy may differ from culture, from place to place. But when you're
Mm,
dealing with Norse mythology,
mm,
that's the same as Greek mythology.
yeah.
It's the same. The Greek mythology, they speak about, this concept of the Titans. See,
Mm,
what you want to pay attention to in these mythologies is there's always these beings that
mm,
preceded God.
mm,
So, in Greek mythology, you have these Olympian Zeus and all of these men here. But
yeah.
prior to them, you had these beings called the Titans.
Mm,
Saying in Norse mythology, before um Woden and Loki and all them man there,
mhm,
you had the giants.
yeah.
These giants are none other than the Titans. And so
Mm,
sometimes what happens is when you read different mythologies, you get more of the picture because a lot of them are fragmented in and of
mm,
themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're from
yeah.
one kind of perspective trying to tell this one story. Do you understand what I'm saying? But when you piece them all together, you might get a little bit more let's say Norse understanding by studying the Greek mythology or vice versa. Do you understand what I'm saying? And all of these mythologies go back to some of the oldest mythologies on the planet that we don't have to guess where. Do you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
starts with us.
So
You
yeah,
understand?
exactly. So the cycles, like the cycle, seems like a consistent trend because even we look at Kemet, um, who is the god of the day? Is it Ra that rules in the day and then the night comes? Who's it that wins?
So you're
Is
talking about set,
Set, right?
yeah?
So it's like these destructions and cycles are necessary because I think even with Kemet, as far as I know, they said the old kingdom was very like high conscious, high vibration, but actually as the time went on, they kind of lowered and dumbed down,
Right,
seemed like.
right. Which
So yeah.
we could do what we just was kind of speaking on, and look
Hmm.
at the process of this apocalypse or end of the world or the yugas or cycles, right? What's interesting, what you said is the the concept of these cycles, right, is what we kind of want to question into being because again, this thing is something that is constantly being repeated, right? It do due to it being a cycle, and so
Mm,
when you speak of, all right, so for example, when you speak about the old kingdom in ancient
mm,
Kemet and how they had a higher consciousness, the
mm,
reality is when you start dealing with the dynasty period, the dynastic period from the old kingdom throughout, you're actually looking at the fall of Egypt or fall of Kemet,
mm,
right? From the very first erected temple, all
mm.
things there were erected in order to sustain a remembrance,
Right.
the forgetfulness taking place from what we intuitively, naturally, internally understood. We didn't
Mm,
need external to remind us. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so you're talking about the pre-dynastic period, where
right.
when you get into a lot of it relates to what we would demonize in 21st century understanding. And
Okay.
this is interesting. It's not a new thought, but it's actually the same thing when you follow Gnosticism. When you follow Gnosticism, which is the esoteric understanding of Christianity,
Mm,
they look at Yahweh as negative.
right.
Do you understand what I'm
I've
saying?
heard that. Yeah,
That
I've heard that
God,
too. Yeah.
right, that God concept, so that thing that we acknowledge as God in indigenous thought, right? In these mystery schools, ain't really nothing to worship. It's absolutely to be understood, but ain't nothing to worship. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because essentially, just to touch on as well, going back to the mythology aspect, when you go through the Greek mythology and all of these other mythologies, there's always this thing at the end of the world that causes the gods to die. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have these
Mm.
concepts of Ragnarok, which is the end of the gods. Do you
Yeah,
understand? And you
yeah.
think, wait a minute.
That's it. The Nordic revelation is Ragnarok, where Odin, because you know I'm into Marvel, all them things there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so like Ragnarok, I remember, and the wolf Fenrir,
Mhm.
which I thought was almost representative of the shadow because they locked away Fenrir because Fenrir kept getting so big. They're like, this wolf is getting too big.
Mhm.
And then Fenrir broke out and ended up eating Odin,
Right.
who was the master, the what do you call it? The father of Thor, the master god that actually died
Lord.
from Fenrir, ended up consuming him.
And that wolf analogy is going back to concepts of Anubis, right?
Mm,
Also another form of, or one aspect of this deity, Set. See, when we come across Set in the Osirian drama, he's already playing like a negative role, not
mm,
necessarily in a bad way, but he's playing the antithesis to Haru. Do you understand what I'm saying? Whereas in pre-dynastic thought or pre-dynastic era,
mm,
the number one deity was Set.
right.
Number one deity was Set. And you kind of know this because when you look at all of the ancient Egyptian monuments and their statues, especially when you look at their images, they're holding a scepter or a staff. And that
Mm,
every single one of them at the top of the staff is what? Set.
mm,
They're all holding the staff of Set, from Horus to you name it. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're
yeah.
holding, was it talking about a mastery over this particular energy? What this energy
Mm,
represents on one side of the coin is uh that which is undefinable,
mm,
that which is immutable. It's known as is known as that which cannot be changed, which is interesting because everything in this universe is governed by change. So what you're
mm,
actually speaking about is a realm that's outside space and time, which is to say, outside of this dimension. When we understand this from an internal perspective, because we don't deal with anything spooky, it is 100% mystical, but we've removed the spookism, which is simply placing or trying to yearn or come to an understanding or a knowing of something that's outside of yourself. You will never be able to fully comprehend these concepts if you're looking at them from an external view. When we start to understand that all of these deities symbolize a frequency or an energy signature that you yourself is able to utilize and manipulate at will. Not manipulate in the sense of how we understand it in the Western concept, but more so from an alchemical perspective. You're able to transmute. See, what these deities were created in the first place was for us to be able to interface with that which is beyond our logical, physical senses. Because we're falling in our consciousness. We're no longer walking and talking with God in the Garden of Eden. We now have to set up certain intermediaries in order to be able to speak to God. When you go into indigenous cultures, for example, the Yoruba, you know,
mm,
to Ghana, they have the Abosom. You know, you go to Haiti, they have the Laos. We all have these in in Christianity. You have these angels, these intermediaries that
mm,
speak on behalf of God now, right? And that's because
right.
connection's been severed. This connection that's been severed is speaking about you falling more into your logical comprehension, your rationale, your physical self, your egoic based consciousness, rather than
Mm,
your divine mind, which is will be considered or connected to your subconscious. This is the severing process or the fall of man process that's taking place internally. Hence why the Gnostics will speak to not Christ as a figure, but as a consciousness Christ consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is now able to perceive the oneness rather than being stuck in the Maya illusion of duality, of separateness. And the only way you come to that understanding is when you integrate your own duality. All of these mythological stories are symbolic of how you go about integrating these energies, utilizing them, but understanding the oneness from which they all come from. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so, you're looking at the end of the world, the Yugas and Ragnarok, and this concept of the gods falling. The gods are associated. So what do we call God? A creator.
Mm.
Creation is an egoic function. End of. Right? In order to create something, right? Or let me break it down like this. The way you go about creating your reality down here is by way of your perception. What you see is often your interpretation of reality, how you go about defining your reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm talking to those who are on a certain level now where they understand that you dictate everything down here by way of thought. Do you understand what I'm saying? What you think today manifests tomorrow, not literally as in tomorrow, but you've already planted the seeds
Yeah.
for it to germinate. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so everything down here that you've experienced and that you go through and that you receive, you have created. So on this physical plane, we understand that all things come by way of thought, and man is a thinking mechanism, a thinking machine. So we bring things into fruition by way of our thought process, right? This thought process is connected to your consciousness, which is connected to your egoic identity, your idea of self. Do you understand what I'm saying? So these creators or these gods in mythology are really speaking about your conscious mind. It's really speaking about your conscious mind being able to perceive things and manifest things. What do they say in all of these self-help books? All you have to do is visualize. Visualize. See yourself with it, as it, doing it, being with it, whatever it may be. And they're saying by universal law, it has no choice but to manifest, showing that you are intimately connected with this plane of existence. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? But we understood that this level of consciousness ain't the end and be all. In this society, your intellect is rated the highest thing going. If you're intellectual, then you are as if a god on this planet. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're the smartest dude in the room. Whereas in indigenous thought, there's a big difference between and intelligence. Big difference between intellect and intelligence. Intellect belongs to your brain mechanism. This is just your physical brain that we utilize to be able to go about our day-to-day life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your intelligence is connected to your whole body. For example, in Hinduism, you've got different aspects of mind. In fact, in a certain school of Hinduism, I should say, you have 16 dimensions of mind, which are put together in 4 categories, right? The reason why I'm saying this is because it's interesting to know the way they define mind. So you have, I believe, what they call body, Bodhi, yeah, body or whatever, however you spell it. And this mind is speaking about the intellectual mind. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then you have another aspect of mind that's speaking about the intelligence that's related to every part of your cell. Your intelligence belongs to your body now. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then they say you have an aspect of mind that's connected to your identity. So everything that you think of has to get funneled through who you think you are. Then you have the 4th aspect of mind, chitta, I believe, which is speaking about pure consciousness, when you've gone beyond name, form, definition, etc., etc., etc. Again, these are just speaking about layers and levels of perceiving that absolutely must be achievable. That every single school of thought speaks about you being on a journey to this self-realization. That's what everybody's doing down here to find themselves. There's nothing else happening down here. Every single expression is an expression trying to find its its frequency, its vibration of tone to be integrated with that and become one with that. It's all a oneness journey. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's all a oneness journey. So what you want to start doing as an individual when you're reading these stories, you want to start looking at these stories as, oh, I'm reading about myself.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? There's a Neville Goddard quote that says we need to stop believing in God and start thinking as God.
Mm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
But again, I don't really hear these conversations taking place often. It's still steeped in the religious idea around spirituality that earth is the end and be all. So when we are in the quote unquote end times, that's supposed to be signifying the return of God, the very thing that you've been worshiping all of these years, you should be walking around with a smile. Not to say you're disconnected on a compassionate level to what's going on.
Mm.
Of course, as a human being, you're going to feel, etc., etc., etc. But the end goal is to understand so you can utilize this time to really do the internal work. Because at the
Mm.
end of the day, it's an individual game. When you go to the walls of Ma'at, let's say, because that's one of the oldest stories of judgment, right? They're judging your heart against the feather. Now, what we
Mm.
think it is but speaking about how much morale you had, how much morality you had.
Mm.
Speak about the negative confessions, which is I haven't done this and I haven't stolen, I haven't beaten nobody up, I haven't told a lie. Most of the things that you read in the 42 negative confessions, most people's done. Do you understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Just by virtue of, that regard, ain't nobody making it. If we're
Mm.
talking, you understand what I'm saying? Like you, age 6, you were stealing something, you know. So
Mm.
if we're reading it logically, ain't nobody passing the gates of heaven. It's over for all of us. Luckily, there's an internal understanding that speaks to the knowing that again, as a human being, I am governed by these seasons, which is to say, I'm governed by these cycles, which is to lead on to say that therefore I'm always going to experience different sides. I'm going to have a golden age type of consciousness or feeling or emotion or experience, but I'm also going to experience the Kali Yuga stage, which is, I'm going to experience the enlightenment, but I'm also going to experience the destruction. So as a human being, you are governed by this natural ebb and flow of up and down, yin and yang, masculine and feminine, positive and negative. That's the game down here. You understand
Mm.
what? And this is why to the ancients, it was about getting off the game. Yeah, getting off the game. You have a concept of the wheel of samsara, or in fact, Buddhism. Let's use that for an example, because that's a happy-go-lucky religion that most people think it is. But one
Yeah.
of the core tenets of Buddhism is what? That life is suffering. What? Life is suffering. Remember, this is one of the most happy-go-lucky type of quote unquote religions. And within it, it's saying, yo, life is suffering. It's speaking to the aspect of us that is constantly in the ebb and flow between negative and positive, that's constantly trapped in duality. Just by virtue of you having a good, you give birth. This is in the book of the Tao. Do you understand what I'm
So,
saying?
so is it because I think if I'm not mistaken, they say Buddhism came out of Hinduism, or Buddha was like he had a message that was a little bit different from what I know. I might not be 100% correct, but
Yeah.
it, it, is it also Buddhism or Hinduism where they say desire is suffering? I think they said your desire leads to your suffering.
Right, right. That's Buddhism as well, right?
That's also Buddhism.
And,
Okay.
and other elements. And
Cool.
it's this. desire is a paradoxical one because desire is not necessarily something that you're going to get rid of. That's
Mm,
part of the human design,
mm,
right? Which is to say, it's part of the human flaw if we come from it from a Gnostic, mystical Christian perspective. They saw
mm,
this level of reality as a flaw, which is the same way of saying how the indigenous Americans, let's say, saw it as Maya, the
mm,
illusion. It's the
mm,
same, it's the same concept. Do you understand what I'm saying? And essentially what they're speaking about, this desire now, is because when you come into this world as a child, when you're born, you are governed by your desire to live. Do you understand what I'm saying? Governed by your desire. You're designed to desire for food, clothing, shelter, etc. Let's just keep it on the food level. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just on that level, you're
mm,
yearning for this particular thing, and so this desire on one level is speaking to that, but on another level, it's you're not necessarily getting rid of your desires. It's no longer has a hold on you. You're not led by it. Do
mm,
you understand what I'm saying? Right? You're you utilize it for your understanding of oneness because when you jump on the spiritual path, and I say jump on the spiritual path, you're never not on the spiritual path. You're just either aware of it or you're not aware of it. But there's that desire or that soul's desire to seek back to its essence. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right?
mm,
The desire that they're speaking about is more based in your, let's say, lower animalistic self rather than your higher consciousness. And your job as the alchemist is to transform this let's say, as an animal on an animalistic level, you have these instincts, right? And these instincts and these urges are what govern the animal kingdom. What you're trying to do as an elevated being, quote unquote, is transmute that instinct into intuition. It's the same faculty, but it's being expressed differently. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so you're trying to get beyond or ahead of your desires, not to say you no longer have them, but you utilize it for the purpose of union, let's say, however that may look, right? However that may look. Your idea of union might be, yo, I got this desire or urge to just dance and set up this dance company. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or work for this organization or set up my own thing or, whatever it may be, you might have this strong desire or this urge to do so. And that's simply your soul telling you, oh, no, this is what you came here to figure out this time round. Do you
mm,
understand what I'm saying? Everybody's come here with a question, hence they're on the quest. And that quest or question is something about themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying? Something about themselves, because this is a know thyself game. So you only came down here to know thyself. So everything in your experience is a mirror for you to look at yourself and understand aspects of self. Everything becomes your guru in that
mm,
particular way. Everything becomes your shaman, everything becomes your healer. Because you're now operating from a place of the middle point. Buddhism calls it the middle path, right? This middle path is important. I think we touched on it on the first episode,
yeah,
whereby every single esoteric inner mystery school has this middle path, which is speaking about the union of the left and the right. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so when you're in the middle, you can choose to observe the left and the right. Whereby if you're just observing the left, if you turn your head left, you no longer see what's on the right. If you turn your head right, you no longer see what's on the left. But when your
mm,
head is central in the middle, you're able to see both. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is what we're trying to do on a conscious level, whereby we see the duality, right? We see the duality. Understand, we're talking about a cosmic understanding. We're not talking about getting it on a relative level. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're never going to go throughout your life on a relative level not wanting to slap a bitch. You understand?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, something's gonna trigger you. That's just what it is, you know. And to the ancients, that was enough to want to get out of here. To you understand, well, this must be a flaw because we speak about this oneness and this ultimate reality and God is as being this state of peace. Then why am I experiencing this? You understand what I'm saying? And so certain levels of school, certain schools of thought spoke to this place as earth, as a hell type of place. Some describe it as a prison. I like to say it's both a prison and a prism. A prism is something that reflects light, whereas a prison is something that entraps light. And everything that
All right.
is on that level, even your chakra system, as much as we glorify the chakras,
Mm,
understand it's absolutely a prism, a place where you're supposed to shine and reflect light. But if you're not doing the internal work, then that becomes your prison. And this prison that you become confined in is the emotions that's attached to each energy center. Do you know what
mm,
I'm saying? Every single chakra is aligned up on the endocrine system. It's
mm,
lined to specific glands that produce specific hormones that influence specific behaviors. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so some of the ancient sages and yogis would use this particular system, the chakra system was speaking about your central nervous system, right? Of course, with a little bit more weight and perspective on it than we do in this day and era. But it was all about how to understand the central nervous system because that's the place where fine tuning takes place. Do you understand what I'm saying? They looked at the body as a vehicle, but they had real technology, real advanced technology that allowed you to influence certain levels of the body that even in the 21st century, but all our technology can't perceive. We spoke about in the last episode whereby, you're registered dead when they no longer can pick up a heartbeat, an energy
mm,
signature. But there's other ways of perceiving that are able to see deeper levels in which is referred to as things as your energetic body or your subtle body or your etheric body. They had different technologies that was able to perceive that and therefore work with the body differently. Do you understand what I'm saying? But again, all of it is a inner engineering process, as Sadhguru would say. It's an inner engineering, the
mm,
same way this is an inner journey. Wherever you go, whatever you do, it's about you being able to see whatever you're interested in, whatever's deep and dope to you spiritually. You want to get to the point of, okay, well, how am I doing that? Do you understand what I'm saying? And the reality is, all of these schools of thought are simply a remembering tool. They are a remembering tool.
mm.
We, all of these spiritual scriptures, no, what I'm going to do is probably on the ground, I'm going to post a whole bunch of books where people can go read and go check out themselves because there's still this, people still in the phase where they're still figuring out that everything on the planet is black, really and truly, you know,
Mm.
really an argument that we kind of deal with over there. I just,
Yeah,
we know that, you follow? And
yeah.
so all of this science was written down. In fact, you can go read the Hermetica, right? Which speaks about ancient Egypt, talking about a time when ancient Egypt will no longer be the shit.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, and this is 5,000 years ago, speaking of
Mhm.
a time where people will forget themselves and they will be in a strange land governed by foreign people and the whole story of us as a people written
Yeah.
down 5,000 years ago, which again says they understood the seasons that we were going in.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm saying, the cycle. So, all right, let's write some shit down. There's a book called, I believe it's called The Alphabet or Symbols versus the Alphabet.
Mhm.
Again, you got the further you go back, the language was very symbolic in pictorial form, right? And from a logical standpoint, we see, that looks a bit babyish. Or this is when they were just beginning to learn language and so forth. When really and truly, it was high science. It was speaking to a holistic side of you, Remember, a picture paints 1,000 words. So this one symbol can be read 1,000 ways. So when we're reading the hieroglyphs or any other symbols, the adinkra or whatever they may be, yeah, they have
Mm.
their meanings, but on a metaphysical level represent like a whole different dimension. Not only do they have a physical meaning, each geometric form has a corresponding tone. We know this according to the science of cymatics. Yeah, the science of cymatics, 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 which is the science of how sound influences matter. And it show again and again and again and again and again when you place these grains and sounds on a metal plate and introduce a particular tone or frequency, the sand on the plate reforms itself in a particular geometric shape.
Mm.
Every shape has a sound, but if you ain't perceiving on a certain level, you ain't picking up the frequency. You understand what I'm saying? You're gonna have to tap into another sense or what they call I can't remember all of their names, but you have things like clairaudience, yeah, clairvoyance. These
Yeah.
your higher senses, which really
Yeah.
are real senses, your natural senses, before they became shut down. And we got into our logical mind and just started using this aspect that can't pick up shit.
Right. Yeah, I think what from what you just said as well, man, a long, long, long time ago, those senses, those external other senses that you mentioned, were more profound. But when that started to shut down, we started to use more smell, hair, and sight instead, the more physical aspects to make up for the lack of our other senses being
Right.
dumbed down.
Right. They say that like for example, they say if you lose like your hearing, your sight, your eyes, your sight becomes better. Or if you
Yeah.
lose your sight, your hearing becomes better. Same
Hmm.
concept with these, the clairaudience and the clairvoyance and all of these other abilities. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so, um, the power faculty of hearing not present to the air, but regarding the lineages. So I was just reading something. And we still have those abilities because if I was to tell you, close your eyes and
Yeah.
visualize, picture a
Hmm.
cow. If I told you, all right, hear the cow moo, you may possibly hear the cow moo.
Hmm.
Nowhere near a cow, but you can. Just I'm saying we play off the that's just mine and our memory and all of these particular things there. That's just science's way of trying to convince you that
Mm.
you're really not the shit. In fact, I was watching when I watched the other day Glass. Glass.
Glass.
Um, that's part
I
of the
heard of it, what's that about?
so you've heard of Split.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's of that and Unbreakable.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's in that same vein. It's the same story, Mr. Glass, where there's power, he's power, like his power is very mental, but his body
Hmm.
is fragile, which is also
Okay.
cult symbol representation of, we were just talking about the destruction of the physical world
Yeah.
in order for God to take, again, it's symbolic of your consciousness. The
Mhm.
more you become conscious, this is more the physical aspect no longer really exists because we know E equals MC squared. Energy is matter and matter is energy. Your body is just a slow down variation of your energetic signature, let's say. Jen,
Yeah.
but that's just one level of the film. Towards the end, for those that have seen it, and if you haven't seen it, then oh well. It's um the whole concept was they sent this lady to convince these three people that they wasn't supernatural, right?
Mm.
They was running a test, and the whole idea was to see if they can make them become powerless by making them believe that they was powerless, right? And so by the end of the film, what she says is, so I'm paraphrasing and I'm jumping through it, that we don't have to we don't have to resort to killing anybody. or we have to, you know, or we don't have to become martyrs. Basically, all we have to do is to convince them that they are not supernatural.
mm,
Anytime you're looking at certain films, there's something called the language of the birds, which is, you know, they're saying that they're symbols paint a thousand words. So they say that movies are a way in which the hidden societies, let's say, you know, speak to each other. Do you understand what
mm,
I'm saying? But it's playing out the same game or the same mythology from ancient times. It even says that in the film where they're breaking down comic books and saying comic books are just a continuation of the exploration of the gifts of mankind, the abilities of mankind. If you read a old school mythology, it will become like you're reading a Marvel comic book. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was interesting to see in the film that they were saying that again, the way they go about, they said if they can't convince you, then they bring in the machine, right? What happens is we spend our time trying to fight the machine, not understanding the bigger play that's happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? Their
Mm,
biggest tool that they have against you is to make you believe that they have a tool against you. The only thing that they're doing is getting you to believe in your own invincibility. Do you understand what I'm
mm,
saying? Like in your own, like you don't have a suit. Because the moment you believe it, which is the whole idea of self-doubt, which is
mm-hmm,
directly connected to your ego-based consciousness, the more I can get you to believe in that, is the more I can get you to doubt your own abilities. So when we're speaking about the distraction and oh, they done a rap battle
mm,
to really distract you from a war that's going on, which is absolutely whoever was interested in the rap battle,
mm.
I can promise you didn't give two monkeys about the war. Yeah, that's fact. Nobody was on, about to go to a protest and said, hey, wait a minute. Drake just dropped. I think I'm gonna stay home and listen
Yeah.
to you understand what I'm saying? Is no, that's not how they're distracting you. The fuck, like that's not the game. Do you understand what I'm saying? The fact that you're still pointing outside of you, the same way you can't point to a God outside of you, and you have to, that's a self-realization process. Or best believe you can't point to a devil or a Satan or an enemy outside of yourself. That's an internal process as well. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we get all high and mighty when it comes to the good aspects of what we're trying to deal with. But the moment when you introduce the other polarities, like, wait. I don't think I'm ready to integrate that yet.
Mm,
And that's not spirituality. That has nothing to do with spirituality. That's everything for you to dress up your egoic function, your
mm,
egoic identity, to present yourself like you're doing something. Present yourself like you're really spiritual, so everybody can see you. It's still about the other. It's still about how other people see you and how you affect other people. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's still an egoic function, very subtle, because I understand that on a deeper level, there's an aspect to the soul that just is. You understand what I'm saying? And therefore, because it's just is, it also has this idea of compassion. It has this idea of connection with the other. But the way you connect with the other is by realizing the internal connection. You are already one. Already. The
mm,
idea that you're separate is the illusion that you're trying to come across or get over. Do you understand what I'm saying? But you first have to realize your own separateness. What do you divorce yourself from? What aspects of yourself are you still hiding in the closet, afraid to embrace?
mm,
It's real one-on-one work when it comes to spirituality. You got to realize it from the inside out, not the outside in. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so the more you get into this, is the more is the less you become concerned with those external things. Is the reason why I jump on this to speak on this is not to gain an audience. The audience is already there, even if it's a one person audience. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I'm only ever speaking to this ageless wisdom. It's not my information. This is the information of your ancestors, which is to say, this is the information that belongs to you. You are the ancestors. You chose to incarnate now for this particular part of the race. But what happens is we get stuck up at continually looking back. Now, that's a tool you can utilize that. Don't get it twisted. I come from that historical aspect before I jumped into occult. I've been in the whole Pan African historical. I get it intimately. I've walked this journey diligently. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's beyond that because those that have come before us have passed on the baton. And if you're in a race and the baton's been passed on to you, you don't look back wondering, bro, I wonder how they ran the race. They're looking at you like, damn, I just gave you the baton. It's your
Run.
time to run the run.
Yeah,
You looking
yeah.
where we go? We're relying on you. Where are we going? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's how real it is. Where are we going? So you're leading the way. You're leading the way. But in order to understand that, it's a self-realization process, B. There ain't nothing like regardless of what you're into, I can show you on every aspect, every single point. Do you understand what I'm saying? On a alchemical level, on a financial level, we're really down here. If we really
Mm,
get nitty gritty, right? Our whole sense of self and achievement is wrapped up in our finances.
mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying, right? And this is not to divorce finances from spirituality because making money is 100% alchemy. 100% alchemy. But I've met many poor rich people.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But I've never met a wealthy poor person. It's a
Mm-hmm.
type of consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a different type of consciousness whereby you're no longer chasing those material gains. You understand that the materialization of those things there come by way of thought. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying? So while you're
Mm-hmm.
investing all of that power into building something physical, that's all well and good as well. That might be, look, we don't demonize nothing in this level of conversation. Everything is individual. If that works for you, then it works for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I always say anything I say, if it resonates, take it, add from it, take away from it, make it yours. If it doesn't resonate, throw it in the bin. I'm not into convincing anybody anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? You either know this or you don't know this. It's as simple as that. Or or you want to know this, let's say. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ain't no, I'm under the no illusion that everybody is tuning in, listening diligently. You understand what I'm saying? Some people are just tuning in and, oh, yo, it's Malik. Yeah, I'm not tuning in. Yeah, yeah, that's bro. Some people tuning in because they like the range of madness I put on gram and they just want to see me talk some shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? People
Yeah.
come for many different reasons, but let me make it clear. I'm absolutely speaking to those who are sincere on this journey. Sincere. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I'm shit. I'm not confused in any of that. In any of that. I'm not trying to set up a business around this. I'm not trying to, make this the number one podcast. I'm not trying to do any of those things there because I don't need to do any of those things there. The work is already done.
Mm.
Believe the work is already done. Now I'm just partying on my way back home now. You understand what I'm saying?
So, brother, you mentioned this a little while back, but were you going back to the middle path?
Mhm.
Um, I believe from my interpretation, um, the Mr. Alistair Crowley, when he was a part of the Golden Horde, I believe they said he took predominantly left-hand path,
Mhm.
which is mainly, and because we're talking about in individualism and going inward, um, they said he took mainly a left-hand path, which is got to do more with the individual, and the right-hand path
Right.
was more collective.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
obviously you've got a middle path which is balanced.
Right.
Would you say that's a fair statement, or is there some misleading in that?
Yeah,
How?
it's interesting because I was looking at some of the some of Alistair Crowley stuff today. Actually, I was doing some research on Saturn
Mm,
and what that represented and so forth. And
mm,
essentially, what you're dealing with is I I, I posted something on my Instagram today. One
is
sec.
it? I'm yet to look, but
It's,
we'll do.
it was a quote by Lao Tzu.
Yeah, I know Laos. Yeah.
They do that with the art of war. Yeah.
Mm,
And one second. There is. And this is how it goes, yeah? It says, the path into the light seems dark. The path forward seems to go back. The direct path seems long. True power seems weak. Yeah. True
mm,
purity seems tarnished. True steadfastness, true steadfastness seems changeable. True clarity seems obscure. The greatest art seems unsophisticated. The greatest love seems indifferent. That's an important one. All of them
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
greatest wisdom seems childish. When you're talking about the right path and the left path, what often people associated with is one that kind of goes down a more dark path and
Mm,
it's more kind of like you said, communal, light, coming together and so forth. There's
mm,
elements of truth. That truth is so multifaceted. You get me? So one level of on on one level that's true essentially, but what you're dealing with is a guy like to internalize everything. What is the left side on you? The left side represents your feminine side.
mm,
You understand what I'm saying, right? And your heart is on the left side. So when they're speaking about the left-hand path, they're speaking about a more feminine path, which is to say, speaking about a more inward path, because the feminine represents the inward journey, whereas the masculine is the outward, right?
mm,
The masculine is the exhale, the feminine is the inhale, the internal. Do you understand what I'm saying? The penis is external, the
mm,
vagina internal. You get me?
mm,
When you're dealing with the left-hand path, you're more so going into that realm. And when you're going into that realm, from a logical standpoint, it seems like chaos. It
yes,
seems like darkness. But
yes, yes.
that ability to perceive that level of light is not available to your human level of perceiving. You have to go beyond that, which is to say, you have to go through a certain level of depth, which is Darth on the Kabbalah, which is
Mm,
middle center of the Kabbalah, the middle path.
mm,
And what I'm saying, the middle path is not necessarily, um, and again, it sounds like I'm associating the feminine with the left hand,
mm,
when truly that's really dealing with the holistic, that's really dealing with the whole. It's the feminine that gives birth to all forms. So everything belongs to the feminine anyway. Do you understand
mm,
what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with the middle path, you're dealing with your ability to be neutral, which is to be zero, which is to say you're neither left on the pendulum swing or on the right of the pendulum swing. This is not to say that what did it say? It says the greatest love is indifferent, or the greatest love seems indifferent. This is Lao Tzu, right? Somebody indifferent in the 21st century comes across as somebody who doesn't really care. But what it's speaking about is you no longer have the pull of your emotions governing your existence. You can absolutely observe a reality or a trauma or whatever it may be, an experience, but you're not attached to it emotionally. Now, this is an internal understanding and an internal um, acceptance. This ain't something that you're trying to go out of your way to showcase to another person. It would be absolutely insensitive if you witnessed, a car accident or death or whatever it may be from a friend or family and be like, yeah, it is what it is, B. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
On a relative
Yeah,
level,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
you're not dealing with
course.
that. You're gonna offer a level of compassion, but internally, because we all know that emotionally is how you're constantly not in a state of rest, right? You're constantly not in a state of rest, and the idea is to be in rest. When you enter the center, the middle path, right, which is the neutral, you are in absolute rest, which is to say you are in absolute peace. They keep
Mm,
you in an unrest state by constantly giving you things to be emotional about. So we know anytime there's a killing of a young brother, a young sister, or whatever it may be, emotionally, they can get us out of the middle central pillar, which is Shushumna in the Hindu concept, which is the whole spinal column, right? Leading up to the pineal gland and Christ consciousness, they can get you out of that and put you in a state of hyper alertness,
mm.
the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, right?
Right.
Skin inside. When you're constantly in a state of unrest, this is when disease comes on. When you're in a constant state of stress,
Mm,
it's a stress in your body, therefore certain illnesses and disease. Do you understand what
right.
I'm so
Because
essentially,
that's when you release cortisol, isn't it? That's the stress hormone.
do you understand what I'm saying? So just on that level is how they're really keeping you trapped down here. You know, just your your emotional attachment to everything they do is what keeps you imprisoned to this level of perception and perceiving. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if we really understood the science of death, not to say we wouldn't be compassionate, but we
Mm,
would have an understanding that, oh, this is a different ball game. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a whole another ball game when you get into the spiritual realm. You kind of have to do a 180. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're gonna have to do a 180, or like they say, you get left behind. When you talk about the 144 and many are called and few are chosen, this and all of that,
mm,
it's just speaking about those who are willing to go to a level of perception that requires a level of self-sacrificing. You
mm,
have to go beyond what you believe you think you know. End of whatever you think you know, whatever
mm,
you attached yourself to your identity, which is often based on an external thing or something that has been programmed in you from an early childhood. None of it belongs to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? But we go about every single day, day in and day out, defining our parameters based on our traumas, what we can do and cannot do based on what we received in our early childhood. So that alone is fucking you up. So before we get into the real deep mystical and yeah, this is what you do and did this, we need to check on how we're perceiving. I can give you the greatest ritual to do, but if you're still doing it as a human being, you're just fucking up the ritual. You ain't really doing nothing with that ritual. You're still approaching it from a religious mindset of, oh, something outside of me is going to do the work for me. But you have to have this internal knowing that when I say this Agwan, it's
mm,
already done. I'm not even saying trying to make it happen. Because the mere fact that you're trying to make it happen, you're also making a statement that it's not happened. You're telling the universe, no, it doesn't exist. That's why you really got to put in your mindset and walk and know. And it's in the feeling. What you want to do when you're having your meditations or your visualizations, you want to get it into the feeling. You want to feel it. And how you feel it is you want to register any type of feeling that arises to the manifestation of that particular thing. That's the true science, right? You're never gonna like I remember panic. You always used to say this, which is if you think you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong.
mm,
Meditating and you're visualizing and you're doing all of that and you think you're doing it wrong, then you're doing it wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? All of this is an inside knowing. So you have to get to the point whereby when you're visualizing and this emotional feeling comes up, you
mm-hmm.
ascribe to, oh yeah, it's done, baby. I'm good. And that
Yeah.
takes practice. It takes practice because you're ultimately going against what? Your own self-doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only thing that's fucking you up and stopping you, your own self-doubt that says, yeah, I want this to manifest, but I don't know when it hasn't come yet. Or it hasn't, I ain't seen no, you get me? I'm just saying I haven't seen the ego, and the ego is the last to know. That's the last to know. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you're looking for the manifestation from those two eyes, you're gonna be like a donkey with the carrot attached to it at the front, chasing it, but never really gaining it. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nah, I mean, as Nas would say.
Get me, so yeah, but I don't know if you have any more questions. I'm done. If not,
I
I'm
got,
good.
yeah, I got something to ask. Because nowadays, right, um, a lot of people, also, this is something that comes up a lot now from, you know, everyone's creating content. You've had a lot of prominent figures and even some spiritual people incorporating therapy.
Right, right, right.
So obviously, the number one rule of therapy is there's no lying in therapy. There's certain podcasts I listen to. They would start by saying, "Listen, there's no lying in therapy," right?
Right.
But I've never been to therapy,
Mhm.
but this thing about traumas, healing from your traumas,
Right.
and a lot of people are going to therapy now. And from the little bit I've understood, is therapy. The therapist tends to, because it's like, when they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Right.
But from what I understand, the therapist really just gets you to self-reflect and have a conversation with yourself.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So, but then, you've got other people like Tate, for instance, says, going to therapy doesn't help. It makes it worse because you're constantly reliving all of the things that make you feel bad because you're constantly talking about it over and over again, reminding you, there's different trains of thought and opinions on it. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
say, how do you think about therapy? Is it beneficial? Is it a pathway to help, enlighten somebody that's experiencing trauma or heal from traumas? Or
Now,
I don't know.
again, this whole journey is a very personal
Mm,
journey. Do you understand what I'm saying? That
yeah,
concept, we're looking at from, a humanistic perspective. Like I said, we see things in duality. So there's an argument for everything. Do you understand what I'm saying? On one hand, someone's going to say therapy is the greatest tool on the planet. Everyone must do it. On the second hand, like you said, someone's going to be like, nah, it doesn't do shit. And da, 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 da. There's going to be a pro and a con for every friggin' thing under the sun. Do you understand what I'm saying? What we're
mm-hmm,
trying to apply is a holistic understanding that can see both sides.
mm-hmm,
What I'm saying I can see both sides. And really, you say both sides is really the oneness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because this whole just quickly going back to the left path and the right hand path is still dealing with a level of duality.
yeah,
You trying to come to the understanding that they don't even exist. Balance is one of the greatest illusions in the spiritual game. And people talking about, yeah, I'm trying to balance my energies, man. I balance this and balance that. And I get it. It's absolutely a pathway into understanding, but it's not the understanding in and of itself. Do you understand what
mm-hmm,
I'm saying? You're still dealing with duality. You still believe with duality. When it comes to therapy, like I said, it's going to be a personal thing. Some people swear by plant medicine, and some people say it was the worst experience they ever had. I ain't never going back. Do you understand what I'm saying? But
you know what?
I
As
said that, just to finish
as
the
you just said that as well, it's like,
1 second, just to finish the
yeah,
thoughts before this out, that the therapists, what the therapists ain't nothing but modern day shamans that
mm,
just have one side of the coin. I'm boosting them up, but at the same time stripping them down because they still think very logically. But like you said, their whole purpose is to get you to see you. That was the whole purpose of the shaman and the guru and the guide and the teacher for you
yeah,
to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
you was gonna say something, bro.
Yeah, no, so it's like hold up mirror. Yeah, like as what you just said about the plant medicine, I guess you can also say if you have a bad experience with plant medicine, you was meant to have a bad experience because you're supposed to have bad experiences, that so-called bad experiences, then it can't all be pleasant. Do you know what
Right.
I mean? You're
Some of the
supposed to see
people
that
will
side.
say that there's no such thing as a bad experience. In fact, the bad experiences are the best experiences. Do you understand?
Yeah,
And that's how they will kind of approach that whole, you know,
yeah.
understanding. But yeah, in regards to the whole concept of therapy, again,
Mm,
like, it's a very personal thing, but what I try to deal with is a more spiritual understanding, which is to say a holistic understanding, because let's get it right. Most people go to therapy to get their human life in order.
mm,
You understand what I'm saying? Is, I want to just feel good within myself and do these things so I can go out and be a better human being. Not
mm,
necessarily talk about what we're talking about here. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. There's just
mm,
different stages and different levels. Do you understand what I'm saying? On a humanistic level, it is absolutely our job to take care of our own identity, our own ego, which is our own inner child. So whatever
mm,
you need to do to deal with that, oh, 100% go to therapy. In fact, I do men's work. I work with men on that particular level in
mm,
order to have a deeper conversation at a later time. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because that for me, that's just one part of the process. Now you
mm,
kind of gotten over those particular traumas in your life. Now what? Then what? What do you do? And again, it's mainly about thriving in life rather than transcending life, which in all spiritual doctrines was about. You know, to say, yo, the person that's found Krishna never incarnates on this physical earth again, which is to say,
mhm,
achieved Christ consciousness. Yeah, it's go time. It's time to go. And so you even on that level, if you was to apply it on a holistic scale, it gets spooky for a lot of people. But the whole concept of, they died young or they died too young,
yeah,
like died right on time, like
yeah,
right on time. All of that is in divine order. They may have not necessarily needed the whole whatever 70 to 80 years that us ignorant folks might need. They might have just needed that one moment on earth to be like, yeah, I got that experience.
mhm,
Now it's time to go to the next thing or come back again and do it again.
yeah. Pertaining to Christ consciousness as well. Christ died at about 33, isn't it? So you were here for long.
Right.
So
Which
that's
is,
probably mathematical as well. But yeah.
yeah, it's all symbolic, the 32 vertebrae on the spine leading up to the oblongata known as the mouth and God, which
Mm,
opens up and then you enter into these celestial realms or what Islam calls the place of milk and honey. We're saying
mhm,
nothing talking about, the alchemical substances within the human body, referred to as, your DMT, which would be the honey. Do you understand what I'm saying? The that's produced by the pineal gland. Then you have the pituitary gland that produces the milk, so to speak. All of these are alchemical substances. There's an actual process. There's a literal actual process that takes place within the body that's related to a certain level of perceiving or perception. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, as above, so below. Everything's going to have its correspondence. And so, this is how the ancients were able to map the universe by understanding the micro aspect of the universe, which was you. Do you understand what I'm saying? And again, they would understand this by doing an inner engineering process and understanding, okay, this is what's taking place when you're actually having these particular types of experiences of euphoria or enlightenment or liberation or, you know, all these particular type of things. And so, yeah, all of the stories, him dying at 33, that death, what that death represented, the crucifixion, when you're dealing with spiritual alchemy, which I break down in my second class.
mm,
I teach the whole a university curriculum. That's YOU University. well, everything that we're speaking about on this podcast, I go step by step, showing in detail where these things are coming from and originating and what they mean. Do you understand what I'm saying? But there's a whole process that when you start spiritual alchemy, or the first process of alchemy just in general, is calcination, which is the burning of, the reducing of, you know what I mean? The bringing something back to its primal essence. And so there's a breaking down. This calcination process is often referred to as, in psychology, the dark night of the soul. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you're coming to a realization that, who you thought you was might not be the business, your world is coming to an end, as we started off this whole podcast with. That's what it's speaking about. The end of the world is the end of your own particular world, where you feel like you're losing a sense of self. It feels like a death or a crucifixion, right, of the flesh. Remember, Jesus Christ died, and he spoke about his flesh. But he came back as, yo, I'm not my flesh now. I'm released from the flesh. I'm back with the oneness, the Father. All of this particular thing, speaking about that story of going beyond physical matter as the end and be all of all things. Do you understand what I'm saying? But again, if you're trying to understand this logically, it's going to sound like we need to get rid of everything that's physical and demonize everything that's physical. And it's not about the physical. And it's no, truth is very laid and intertwined. It's not this or that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so you're only going to be able to perceive the real divine truth in your own inner heart. Do you understand?
Mm.
And this is where the true understanding comes from. Nothing I say is going to give you the absolute end all of all things. It may trigger something within you. Something might resonate. This is why I always say, but if it resonates, and it resonates. If it resonates, then it is absolutely your job to find out what this resonance is. Do you understand what I'm saying? And all we
Yeah.
can teach is provide those particular tools and places where you could possibly find these things here. But all of these things that are pointing towards the truth are simply pointing back to yourself. It's going to always go back to self. But if you haven't differentiated between that real self and the self you think you are, then you're always going to be set up to kind of fail at the first hurdle. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's gonna sound so contradictory. When we really get into some of this stuff in other
Mm.
episodes, it's gonna feel like, what? Wait a minute. Wait, so
Yeah.
that means this, and it's gonna sound very, very mystical, very, yeah, just wild. And as we read from Lao Tzu, the path to light often seems dark, because again, oneness to the soul is the abyss to the ego. You have to find your own apocalypse, your own judgment day, with the weighing of the heart, which I think I finished off saying, which is representative of you realizing when it says, I have not stolen or I have not done this. The real question is, you believe in you are an I. Then you get to,
Right.
wait a minute, I don't even exist. It's called the negative confessions, not because there's bad confessions, but on a scientific level, anything that's negative is speaking about the internal.
Mm.
These are internal understandings, internal realizations, not external professions. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a realization that, oh, wait a minute. The I that I thought I was, I am not that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And therefore, the weight of self-doubt, the weight of guilt, the weight of fear no longer weighs your heart. You're free of those burdens. You're free of those things. And so your heart becomes light as a feather. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you're able to, in the halls of Ma'at, go on to become the Asar or Osiris.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, become the God. You become that. You don't go and worship it. You become it. So yeah, man. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, bro. So I don't know how long we've been on there, but we got a little something, something today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something in there for somebody. You know what I mean? Cause I don't remember half of the things already what we spoke about, but I'm sure I'm in in there for somebody still, you know.
There's got to be keys in there. Just
Gotta be
whatever
keys in
anyone
there.
resonates with, you know what I mean? That's it.
No doubt, no doubt. So yeah, man, like I said at the beginning, big up for being there, bro. You
Yeah,
absolutely help with guiding the thought process and the conversation, you know.
yeah,
So
man. Respect, love every time.
yeah, my bro.
Always.
Thanks for that. This is just the beginning. Like I said, we could evolve into a space where, you know, whereby we're doing a visual video cast, but I let that happen organically. Ain't nothing
Yeah,
no. I'll let this
yeah,
information.
yeah, yeah, man. I'm ready. I'm ready forever. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, my brother. Yeah. All right, cool. Let me just end this thing here.
Yeah.
Look off. Uh,